Mm. Alrighty. Starting a little bit earlier than we've been able to recently, so that's good. Mm. Margot the Marnome. What's up? What's up? Long live the American Imperial Empire. Well, you might want to find a better way to say it because Imperial Empire is kind of it's repetitive. Bro, just get out. Get right on that for you, bud. Some of these streams have the most miserable starting 10 minutes. Some of them are fine. Sometimes it's like mostly mods and regulars that get the notification and they swing on by and we get a good chat started. But sometimes it's the dregs of the internet that find me before anyone else does. At least I got coffee. Terrator, have you tried sending that in a super chat? Ooh, interesting. True, you could. You could. You very much could. What's up? I don't know why we're so high energy, but what's up? Jesus, I think your energy might be a bit higher than mine is today. I'm not as low energy as I was yesterday, but I'm still, you know. Whatever. I spend a lot of time watching and listening to and thinking about the news because of, this. And I think sometimes it gets to me a little bit. I think tomorrow I'm definitely going to watch some Hell's Kitchen instead. I think tomorrow will be one of those days where I either listen to an audiobook most of the day or watch some Hell's Kitchen or something like that. And I'll just kind of detox a little bit from the politics and news stuff. Because you know what? As the environmental activists are so fond of saying, the great thing about environmental work is that you can always take a break when you need to. Don't worry, the problem will be there when you get back. Sup, Phoebe? There's been another ice shooting in Minneapolis. It just happened. What? Wait, already? Okay. All right. Okay. Find me some news about it. Find me some news. Let's talk about it. I mean, if I need to, I can end this and then we can start a new stream with screencast enabled and I can, we can look through Twitter and stuff. Yup. Renee went for a drive. Yeah. Aren't you cute? Aren't you clever? Listen, paid Bangladeshi bot. You are talking to an American who actually has a real personality and the ability to vote in my country, and I will not find myself influenced by the idle thoughts of paid Bangladeshi actors pretending to be American. Desktop stream? I can't do a desktop stream tonight. If I could, I would, but I can't. I've, I just can't tonight. But let's just see what's happening. You have found a comment from an Asian drummer. Nice. Well, welcome to, welcome to the stream, friend. By the way, if I have to, dip out for a second, don't worry and stick around because I will be back. All right. Yeah, give me just 1 second. Alrighty. I've returned. So what's this I hear about a second ice shooting? I mean, there's already been a second, so this would be the third. What's this I hear? Activist 321, what's up, what's up, what's up? What's up, Pink Fur? What's up, Linabug? You identify as being right on the gender topic. There's only two. I mean, you're just factually wrong. Like philosophically, that doesn't make any sense. But whatever. Please convert back? Huh? What do you mean convert back? What are you talking about? So what's this I hear about a third ice shooting that's gone down, apparently? Trans rights for all? Hell yeah. Let me make chat just a little bit more readable and useful for everybody. Let me make it subscribers only mode and 20 seconds slow mode. That should filter out most of the spam and bot accounts. You do not look good in women's clothes. That's like your opinion, bro. I certainly get enough chasers in my chat to make me think otherwise, but maybe you're right. My body count and the amount of chasers I see would indicate otherwise, but maybe you're correct. Hi, RP3994-8HY. Hi. All right. Margot sent me a news link. Okay. Let's see here. Margot, is there any way you can give me like the rundown of what's in that news article? Bro, stop playing dress up and go hit the gym. I really wish that people were a little bit more thoughtful with their comments. Not because it hurts my feelings when people say things about me being fat, but merely because I have literally been actively in the process of weight loss for a year now. And people just look, and because I'm still fat, assume, oh, this bitch is fat and has never tried to lose weight and never will try to lose weight. So let me just rub it in her face how fat and ugly she is. It's like, have you considered that you might be wrong about your apprehensions about my progress in that journey? Have you considered that I might not even give a shit about your perceptions of my weight whatsoever? Like, those would be the two considerations that would prevent me from making a comment like that. And I don't think that those considerations happen for a lot of people. What's up, Ben Jacobs? OMG, it's a fucking Ben Jacobs. That's what you should really been saying. No, I'm kidding. But thank you, Ben Jacobs. I appreciate it. The $2 is kind. Very kind of you. Very kind of thou. That message was for someone talking shit in the comments, not for you. Oh, well, you know. I wonder how different Earth would look if we got the good timeline. I mean, Earth itself probably wouldn't look that different. The pocket money isn't worth your mental. I don't know how to tell you this, but internet shit does not matter. It matters to some people because they've literally got nothing else going on in their lives, but I have a robust life outside of my content creation. So after I end the stream, I cease to think about any of you. Subscriber only mode is ridiculous. I'll just unsub after. Well, good. You'll boost my numbers for long enough that it takes to troll me, and then you'll unsub after, and I won't have to deal with a legacy sub that does me no good, and you won't have to deal with being subscribed to some moron you don't like. You help my stream out a little bit. I mean, you help my stream out a little bit. You get a little bit of entertaining content for tonight. I think it works out for everybody. How dare you have a life outside of the internet? I know. Big fuck up on my part. Small egos have never read Hegel or Nietzsche. Well, Nietzsche, I think is what you're trying to say. To be fair, I've never read Hegel or Nietzsche either. I'm not well read. I'm just, well, one, well spoken, and two, slightly better read than your average American. Fuck, we are Charlie Kirk. We are Renee Good. Yeah, that's one I can get behind. We are Renee Good, because you know what? This can happen to anybody. If the shooting of Renee Good can happen to Renee Good, prize-winning, award-winning fucking poet, mother, regular person interested in progressive values, but that was about the biggest crime she ever committed, was being a lefty. It can happen to anybody. If it can happen to her, it can happen to you. If it can happen to her, it can happen to your uncle, your aunt, your mom, your dad, your daughter, your son, your child of ambiguous gender. It can happen to anybody. It literally can happen to anyone at this point. Can someone identify as being another race? Can they? Yes. Do I see that as the same thing as someone who's transgender? No. Because gender is a social construct in a way that race is not, right? Although, that being said, I do think that there's a conversation to be had about I don't know how to put it. Like, if you're raised in a super black community and, like, you're a white person, you're probably going to be more culturally black than white, I would assume, right? Like, if you're raised in a neighborhood with nothing but black people. Similarly, I would assume if you're like a little Asian kid raised in a white neighborhood, you're probably going to come out pretty culturally white. I would assume that if you're like, a Mexican kid raised primarily in a Jewish neighborhood, you're probably going to come out like at least with some culturally Jewish tendencies, maybe. I don't know. Maybe, call it the Mississippi white racist in me, but I can see maybe an argument for there being a conversation to be had about the influence of one's raising and the race that they might actually identify most closely with despite their actual skin color. But I don't think that that would be necessarily the same thing as a transgender person. Um, for one, they concern two entirely different modes of perception and two entirely different like characteristic frameworks. So I think at the very least you would have to study that as a separate issue. But the bigger issue, really, with whether or not someone can identify as another race or not, is that no one's going to buy it. Like, unless you do really convincing blackface or really convincing whiteface. But unless you go the Michael Jackson route, you can't really, like, if you want to say that Michael Jackson is transracial, okay. Okay. Michael Jackson was perhaps the world's only transracial person. But was he really? I mean, Jackson himself certainly didn't see himself that way. He saw himself as a black man. Um, is the fact that white people in the early 2000s would regularly, like mainly white kids, would regularly confuse him for a white guy, does that mean that he was like transracial? I don't think it does. Interesting thing to think about, though. Interesting thing to talk about, I guess. A mixed person could have race dysphoria? Yeah, for sure. A mixed person could have race dysphoria. But, like, that mixed person is, and this is why I'm kind of, like, this is why I waffle on this topic, because when I think about it, right, I can imagine a mixed race person going through a similar kind of thought process to at least some trans people when it comes to which do they like, racial identity in that way is usually a binary, and a mixed race person, it's usually like more is mixed in there, but it's usually like white and black, or Indian and Native American, or like Chinese and fucking French. I don't know. I don't know that many races, I guess, as it turns out. But normally it's kind of like a binary choice that you're looking at there, or like a range that is defined by two binary extremes. And I can imagine someone going through an experience that might be similar in some ways to a trans person's thought experience, if they are born and pretty much look like the kind of person that could pass as either one. I could totally see someone like that having race dysphoria because they feel like they wish they were more culturally black, but they aren't, or they feel like they wish they were more culturally Asian, but they're not, whatever the mix is. In most leftist circles, you're kind of just laughed out of the room for even talking about this stuff, but I kind of think it's worth addressing. If for no other reason than to point out that it's not exactly one of those things that probably has a cut and dry answer to it. Uncle Flanus with the $5, the 5 Australian dollars. Thank you so much. If anybody else would like to make sure their comment or question gets read or answered and their name acknowledged, please consider sending a super chat or donate through the Cash App, which is in my channel description. Damn. Ow, that hurt a little bit. Totally. I know someone who has those feelings about being mixed, and he said the same thing. It's hard to talk about. I would imagine, yeah. I would imagine that it's not something that's necessarily received super well by a lot of people. Squatters' rights? Yep, you got it. As a mixed race person, I've never heard it explained that way, and wow, thank you. It makes my thought process make sense. Well, there you go. I honestly was worried I was going to get canceled there for a second. I was like, am I stepping into weird territory here? But whatever. It's my thoughts on the matter, I'm white as the driven snow, but it doesn't mean I can't talk about what I imagine the experience of a mixed race person to be. I think they said, well, I feel like if you know that symbol is squatters' rights, then you have to know what squatters are, and you have to know what squatters' rights is. Like, how the fuck do you get that far in and you don't figure that out, Margot was in here earlier and she sent me an article about the fucking shooting that happened. Okay, reported by NBC. I haven't read any other outlets. The ABC link was just more Renee Good. All this was reported by DHS, so take it with a grain of salt. I haven't seen any video footage and they've been lying, as you are aware. As far as I'm aware, no one died. January 14. Oh shit. Okay, 6:50 p.m. Okay, yeah, so it looks like about 4 hours ago, there was another ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis. It doesn't look like there have been any deaths reported as of yet, but just be on the fucking lookout. And honestly, you can look at the social media pages of Department of Homeland Security and honestly all of the different cabinet departments right now. Look at them. They are posting Nazi shit, like unironic Nazi shit. Our government is posting actual Nazi shit. Yeah, the people that live on private property without permission, I thought it was an SS symbol like the... No. It's squatters' rights. It's going to be a daily thing. No one is safe. No one is safe, and not nearly enough people are coming out to rebuke this shit, which is another reason why it's going to happen, is because they feel like the consent has been manufactured, and at this point, they have been given free reign. I mean, ICE has literally been told by the vice president at this point, basically, you guys have unlimited immunity. What the fuck does that mean? Universal immunity? What? Huh? What does that mean? That's a completely new phrase to policing in America, but it's something that we're all just supposed to accept with an infinitely patient shrug. We're just supposed to fucking go like, yeah, I guess it's okay. Whatever. Never mind the fact that I've had to listen to rednecks and Southerners talk about tyranny and the Second Amendment for the last 27 years of my fucking life. For the last 27 years of life, damn, I'm going to be 28 this year. Sorry. For the last 27 years of life, I've been listening to Republicans of all sorts, but mainly, people in the South and rednecks just in the rest of the country generally, telling me that the Second Amendment is all about defending us from tyranny. And I've agreed with them in principle, even if I've agreed, even if I've pointed out pragmatically that there is no defending yourself from tyranny against the federal government. Not really. Not unless you've got a mass movement. There's just not. But yeah, I've agreed with them. And now that we're actually seeing tyranny on the streets, now that we're actually seeing a president that wants to deploy federal troops to America's cities and have them go door to door looking for the right kind of person, now nobody sees that as tyranny. All the same people I used to have to listen to arguments about why we can't do a single thing about guns because that would be an infraction and there would be an overreach into our freedoms, into all the liberties that we enjoy as Americans. Now the worm has turned, hasn't it? Now the worm has turned. I need to know the bathroom question. Well, I'm not interested in talking about the bathroom question. I'm interested in talking about what I want to talk about. So if you want to hear me answer the bathroom question, someone can pay to have it answered. How about that? Send a super chat if you really want to get it answered. I'm not reading the bathroom question for no money. Nice, so ladylike. I prefer to think of myself as a lady in the same sense as Western women in the 1870s. As in, I'm a hard-driving bitch, and if you ain't ready for me, get the fuck out. Who are they deporting? I'm concerned. As near as we can tell, goddamn everybody. As near as we can tell, ICE is locking up and attempting to deport anybody that happens to be brown. Literally, there are hundreds of videos at this point on Twitter, on YouTube, on Reddit, hundreds of videos of ICE officers stopping people at gas stations, going up to their homes for no reason, going door to door, going up to people's cars and all this shit just because they happen to be brown. Now, they're not doing it to black people yet because I assume that would be a little bit too overtly racist. And black people are really like the only racial demographic in America that we've been able to drill into the heads of white nationalists. Hey, you can't fuck with someone just for being black, okay? Which is good, but we haven't managed to do that with any of the other racial groups in America. So if you're a Somalian, look the fuck out. If you're a Mexican, look the fuck out. Hell, even if you're Spanish, I'd be a little worried right now with how things are looking. They've pulled plenty of Haitians and Africans. I'm sure they have, but that's not exactly the videos that come out are not exactly of them like chasing down Haitians and Africans usually. They're not able to target black Americans the way that they are like other people of color, or at least it doesn't seem to me from, the observations that I've done over the last, 4, 5, 6 months. Based on what I've seen, it does not appear like they are able to discriminate as directly and openly against black Americans, but they are perfectly fine being openly, publicly, broad daylight discriminatory towards basically anybody else. Like if you're not white and you're not the right variety of black, I guess, from what it sounds like, you're pretty much on the chopping block with ICE, regardless of whether you're a citizen or not. They have detained U.S. citizens and kept them locked up in some cases for weeks until they could prove that they were fucking citizens. That is not how our fucking justice system is supposed to work, ever, 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 ever. In fact, it was practices just like this. It was this kind of illegal fucking massive overreach that led the common people of the American Revolution to join in what numbers they did. And mind you, the American Revolution was not a commoners' revolution. But the commoners that did joined because they saw nothing but government overreach coming out of Britain. And they saw very, very, very little benefit for that overreach. Eventually it came to a head. Eventually it got too stinky. What is it going to take? Are they going to have to start? Is Trump literally going to have to break the Third Amendment? Are we going to have to like see a breach of the Third Amendment before before the country finally wakes up and is like, oh, hey, you know what? Actually, we do dig the Constitution. This is nowhere near overreach. Yeah, it's never overreach when you agree with it, right? I mean, it just sounds so hacky. How is this not overreach? Left, right, good, bad, right, wrong. How is this not overreach? Do you like the idea of your government being able to go door to door asking if you're a citizen just because you happen to be alive in America at a time when everybody's really scared of immigrants? So let's just say you had a really fucking hard work day and a really hard work night. You had to pull a double and you get home and you just want to go to fucking sleep and you sleep for 2 or 3 hours. You think an ICE agent has a right to wake you up out of your sleep and demand that you talk with them for 45 minutes so that they can make absolutely sure that you're not hiding any illegal immigrants in your house? You are defending Nazi tactics. Period. Point blank. You are defending the Gestapo. All you're doing is hypothetical BS. Everything I'm describing is literally being done, and that's according to the fucking government. So in order to defy me in this instance, you need to be defying Kristi Noem and Donald Trump, because I'm just repeating their words back at you. I'm just repeating back the words of J.D. Vance. Those ICE officers in Minneapolis who killed Renee Good were going door to door, asking people for their papers. That's out of the mouth of J.D. Vance. Argue with God. These laws have been here for over 100 years. There's not a single law in the United States Constitution that gives federal agents the right to go up to your door as a U.S. citizen or as anybody. I don't know how to put this to you any fucking plainer. You need to read the Bill of Rights because you have no idea what's in it. I can tell by the conversation we're having. The Bill of Rights makes plain that no human being in the United States is subject to unreasonable search and seizure. And being awoken from your slumber at 8:30 in the morning because they want to check your immigration status is exactly what is meant by unreasonable. Because it is not reasonable to think that every single citizen, it is not reasonable to think that every single person living in America is an undocumented immigrant. That's stupid, right? You know that that's stupid. You know that that is dumb. It is incredibly stupid to think that every American in a given neighborhood is an undocumented citizen or an undocumented immigrant. Goddamn, the terminology we use to describe a person's relationship with the state forces under which they live is so fucking arcane. I hate it. Anyway. Fuck, what was the point? What was the fucking goddamn point I was getting to? Oh yeah, the Fourth Amendment. You have a right to be free and secure in your person against unreasonable search and seizure. It is not reasonable to think that any random person, without even having met them, without even having looked at them, with no paper trail and no accountability, may be an undocumented immigrant. That is a completely unreasonable assumption, and therefore not a reasonable reason. That sounds, I didn't want to say that because it sounds repetitive, but I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's not a good reason to go knock at someone's door. I don't know how else to explain this to you. Flatly, if you support this tactic, you are a Nazi. Literally. I'm sorry. And that's not to say that I think you should die or whatever. You know, I'm not like getting like all that on you. I'm not trying to be like some kind of Tumblrite. You flatly are a Nazi if you think that it's okay for the state police, the federal fucking police. When I say state in that context, I mean the concept of state, not an American state, right? If you think it is okay for federal law enforcement to go up to every person's door in a neighborhood to check their immigration status, then you are a Nazi, flatly. How do you reach that conclusion? Because then that's literally a Nazi tactic. Because that's what the Nazis did. Dumb fuck, what do you mean? How do I reach that conclusion? I read history and I apply it to the current day. Don't like to be a Nazi? Well, start decrying what ICE is doing then. Very simple. Very simple. In fact, incredibly simple. Here's what you do if you think you might be a Nazi based on what I just said. Say, Renee Good was murdered and ICE was conducting an illegal operation that flies in the face of the United States Constitution and flies in the face of humanitarian conduct. That's all you got to do to not be a Nazi. Very simple, very easy. Very, 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 very simple. If you were a police label and a mask with a pew pew going door to door and standing outside schools, a portion of our pop is cool. Yeah, literally. I guess if you are if you're a crook with a badge and a gun, according to MAGA, you are now perfectly fine to go up to every single person's door. Dude, I tell you what, there's an authoritarian and vengeful part of me that wants to say, I can't wait for the next Democratic administration. I know that Democrats are pussies, though, and they won't do this. But, man, it would be so fucking fun for us to turn this fucking tactic. Like, okay, wait a minute. So you guys are cool with us going door to door and asking people questions for no reason? Interesting. We will remember that. These are your standards? Interesting. You will be held to them. Unironically, this is the chance to break the wheel, arm yourself. I mean, I'm not here. Okay? I can sing it, but I can't say it. They'll look high and they'll look low. They'll look everywhere we go. But when those sinners find us, we won't hide. They'll come slow and they'll come fast. We shoot first and we can last. Keep your rifle by your side. Just a good song. I don't know why I felt so inspired to sing that just then. I don't know. Just a good song, man. Just a good song. Worst singing you ever heard in your life? That's why you're still here listening to me, right? That's why my views are at 300, right? Yeah. Cope harder, little bro. Don't endorse political violence? I didn't. I sang a pretty song. I didn't write it. That's the Hope County Choir, not Phoebe Ophelia. Blame them. Free Venezuela from the United States of Israel? Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, I agree with that one for sure, for sure. Okay, Hassan. Whatever. No, never mind. I value having a channel and an income. I'm not going to say that. I thought about it for a second, right? And I decided I am not quite stoned enough to make that mistake. Can you play the guitar? For $10 or more, sure. Why are leftists such cowards? I didn't say it. It's a song. I'm not a coward. I'm facing the very actual possibility that, number one, someone would report the stream because my streams get mass reported every time I stream, pretty much. You know, being a trans woman on YouTube will do that to you, especially if you're an ugly trans woman, and I am not a looker, right? So, you know, there's that, right? I don't want to like endorse open political violence in a way that is like reportable and obvious. I want to make sure that it's clear that it's like satire to some degree, you know? And B, we have an administration that has basically destroyed every conceivable freedom we have except the freedom of free expression. It's pretty much the only thing we have left anymore. Freedom of the press has been pretty much squashed. We have state-controlled media in this country. I guess we have limited freedom of the press because like independent media does still exist, but as far as who's allowed to like run the narrative and like whether or not like the government is going to endorse certain views and things like that, nope, nope. The government is just openly an arm of the media now. So the idea of total freedom of the press has been obliterated. Your right to fucking bear arms. I mean, hell, um, I'm a far leftist and I criticize the liberals' treatment of gun control all the time. And I think that you haven't functionally had much of a Second Amendment in about 50 years. The Third Amendment, I guess that one's pretty solid, but then again, it's not that appealing to quarter soldiers in random people's houses anymore, especially not with the economic degradation that they've subjected most Americans to. I'm assuming they're just like they're better at finding soldiers quarter nowadays. The Fourth Amendment, that has been basically destroyed. Any semblance of the Fourth Amendment that might have existed has been smashed with a hammer by Donald Trump and his administration. Their decision to allow ICE to roam with impunity through America's streets, going door to door, demanding people's citizenship, is literally a return to 1930s era Nazi Germany. And I it's literally like a tactic that they used to fill their concentration camps with Jewish people and Roma people and gay people. I don't know how else to put it to you. It's just a thing they did that your government is now doing. Okay. So I'm of the opinion that most of the Bill of Rights has been fucking crushed into oblivion at this point, and really the only thing that they really have not made a dent in and don't seem to be making much of an effort to put a dent in. I mean, they are, but they're not. They haven't started the heavy enforcement of it yet. Is freedom of expression. So I can, and what I mean by that is like they haven't started the heavy-handed enforcement of it, as in you can still get away with revolutionary talk in song. You can still get away with revolutionary talk in film. You cannot get away with revolutionary talk as a regular, everyday, average leftist with a small platform on YouTube or Kick or anywhere else, because the secret police will come for you at this point in America. I mean, they would love to. I guarantee you, it will not be. I would be shocked if before the year is out, we don't see some like lefty streamers start to get just fucking disappeared or arrested and released by ICE, intimidated by the government. I'm shocked that it hasn't happened already, frankly. I'm all talk? Cool, good to know. I'm a soft, pudgy LARPer. Cool. You're really downplaying the Nazis by comparing them to modern America. I know people who were deeply hurt by the Holocaust and Nazis, and I support you, but don't compare it's not, dude, we are talking about okay, I will stop comparing them to Nazis when they stop using Nazi tactics. Once again, this is not based on some partisan hack opinion of mine. This is based on me looking at the tactics of 1930s Germany and seeing them reflected in modern day ICE as described by the President of the United States and his Vice President, J.D. Vance. I'm sorry, I'm just describing things according to reality. And the reality is one that is shocking and horrifying. I'm sorry, I cannot help that. I didn't make ICE start going door to door, which, according to J.D. Vance, they are doing. That is Nazi shit. Going up to every door in a neighborhood and saying, "Show me your papers. Make sure you are a real citizen. I need to look around this house and make sure that you are not hiding any immigrants." Door-to-door checking for papers is different than door-to-door murder? You don't understand. Door-to-door checking for papers is how it starts, OJ. That's how it starts. It didn't start with door-to-door murder. It didn't. The Holocaust did not begin one day with the night of broken knives, and the next morning everybody was going door to door killing random Jews. That's not how the Holocaust happened. And if you care about the Holocaust, then you probably know that. So why are you coming at me with this argument predicated on some moralism that is, in my opinion, completely unjustified? The reality of it is, the Nazi regime began its genocide against Jewish people by going door to door and asking people if they were Jewish, by establishing a census record of Jewish people. And as the Holocaust went on, it remained a tactic. And in fact, once they'd rounded up all the regular Jewish people from all the ghettos, then they started the process back over. Because at that point, they were looking for people that were hiding Jewish people. What you're seeing right now is the soft census being taken. Who's an immigrant? Who's not? Who knows undocumented people? Who doesn't? Who's going to be a collaborator? Who's going to be resistant? And nobody sees it because nobody wants to see it. It was criminal to be Jewish in Nazi Germany. Very true. Although, interestingly enough, not at first. At first, it was criminal to be Jewish and not identified with the star. And it was illegal to be married to a Jew if you weren't Jewish, and it was illegal for you to marry someone who wasn't Jewish if you were a Jew. Eventually, this got codified into even harsher treatment of Jewish people, and eventually, as Bree said, it became a crime to be Jewish in Nazi Germany. And I don't know how to tell you this, but we're already a pretty fucking good long chunk down that pipeline. I don't want to give an inch to the other side tonight. Just door-to-door visits to the neighborhood for me, thanks. Yeah, you are fucking right for that instinct, Riley. I don't want to give a goddamn inch for them tonight. No. Like, I don't feel that either. I'm not feeling the love. I don't know how else to put it. I feel like MAGA needs to answer for this. And if you voted Trump or you were MAGA at some point and you're not now because of things like this, and you need to be loud about that. You need to be fucking telling people this ain't what we voted for. We did not vote for masked men, masked dumbasses, no less. Look at how they fucking move around. Dude, it is so fucking clear that they are just hiring fat ass fucking rednecks from the South. Literally. They're hiring motherfuckers like me, but not trans, basically. They're, and I would never fucking make a good ICE officer, so I just don't know the fucking logic behind this shit. But you can tell they're hiring hicks from down south because they keep fucking slipping on ice. Literally, watch ICE officers try to navigate around a cold, snowy environment. They're dumbasses. They're complete fucking fools. They're buffoons. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of them are like 19 to 25, according to a senior ICE official that was speaking under the condition of anonymity to, I forget which newspaper, but according to one of them, a lot of fucking people that are just like super fresh out of the academy and really want to be engaging in this particular kind of action are the ones who are getting deployed to these cities. So, like, we're not talking about some experienced force of competent law enforcement. We're talking about a rabble of hicks from the deep south and conspiracy circles all across America being set loose upon America's cities. Which, by the way, that's another Nazi tactic. Recruit heavily from the downtrodden and poor of your nation's rural lands. Have them go into the cities and clean things up, quote unquote. That's another Nazi tactic. Fuck Donald John Trump. I agree. I love that. FDJT. 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 It's just a bunch of failure to launch white guys. Yeah, exactly. Well, think about it. Being an ICE officer is an unappealing job to a person like me. I got a kid. I have a child and a life. I own land. Okay, I don't own land, but my father owns land that will be passed down from me when he eventually passes away. I'm 27 and my dad had me when it was like 35 or something. So you can, right? Like, whatever. And we can go into that more if you want to. But the point is, like, you know, future homeowner, like guaranteed future homeowner, got a kid, has an independent income in business. I'm never going to join ICE, and neither are any of you who actually have a life. If you've got a wife and a kid, if you've got a husband and 2 kids, if you've got not a partner at all, but you've got a bunch of cats and an apartment of your own and a job that you like, you're not going to join fucking ICE. The only people who really have the kind of lifestyle to join ICE are, well, like Bree said, failure to launch white guys for the most part, and probably some middle-aged dudes that have gotten to a point in their life where they just feel like it's all been a waste and they want some big change, and this is exactly the new footing that they think that they need for that change, but I would be willing to bet that it's way more the former group. It's a lot of fucking people that don't know what else to fucking do in life. Like, ICE does not pay well enough, nor are the benefits good enough, nor are the deployments interesting or reliable enough to be like a career choice the way joining the Navy or joining the Army or the Marines might be, or the Air Force, or one of America's like actual military branches. Like, people will join the military even when they have a life because the military can actually offer them better than a lot of civilian kind of, like, a lot of people that are just like born to poor parents in America are really not going to be able to work themselves up to a higher position than the military would offer them as an entry level. So it's a very appealing fucking choice for them. Being an ICE officer is not that. And like the only real financial incentive, like the only real heavy hitting financial incentive, I mean, is this like $50,000 sign-on bonus or whatever that's being offered, which you have to remain an agent for 5 years to even get that. I don't think a lot of people even realize that, but that's a pretty heavy financial incentive. But once again, who's got the time for it? If you've already got a life, you can't just up and leave. Not only that, but if you join the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Space Force, you're going to get ostensibly, unless you do a Vietnam, unless you help out of Vietnam, you're probably going to be lauded when you get home. People are going to want to work with you. People are going to want to hire you. Who the fuck is going to want to hire some failure to launch white dude that joined ICE because he had nothing better to do? So, like, literally, it's like custom fit for that exact subtype of person. I'm gonna move on to your dead dad's property, squatters' rights. I don't know if you know this, but in every jurisdiction that recognizes squatters' rights, you can't squat on a property that's actively being inhabited. That's not what squatters' rights means. Squatters' rights means if you see a house, a property, a piece of land that's been abandoned and been like left to rot, then you should have as much right as anyone does to take that over and to make something out of it. That doesn't mean that you have the right to go up to any person with a house and demand that they leave it so that you can move in. That's a very childish conception of squatters' rights that I honestly feel kind of gross and icky, ennobling with a response. Honestly, I'd do it to be undercover and report what's going down and scalp a little money from fascists, but I don't want to permanently stain my employment opportunities. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how do you explain that 5-year gap where you just weren't working, Not only that, but Ignar, you would not be able to handle the kind of shit. Like, that's the thing. That this is why, in my opinion, people that try to influence it from the inside usually end up just quitting out before they ever get a chance to, because like a person with a conscience is not going to be able to murder Renee Good. A person with a conscience is not going to be able to pull a Mexican family out of their minivan on the middle of the highway and abuse the fuck out of them before gaffling them up into some unmarked van and driving away with them. Like, you kind of have to not have a heart. Like, you have to be able to put your heart up for sale and completely disregard your internal moral framework. Jesus would hate ICE. Jesus would indeed hate ICE. Jesus told you to take care of the foreigner in your land. Can men get pregnant? Trans men can, yeah. And do regularly. This is not how we enforce the law in this country historically. Yeah, no. It actually flies in direct contravention of the known best practices. So, like, it's literally not just that, but the Constitution itself. You are not allowed to accost someone at their home based on the blanket presupposition that they may be a criminal. You have to have articulable, reasonable suspicion that that person has committed a crime. Articulable, reasonable suspicion doesn't just mean reasonable as in, it kind of makes sense. It means reasonable as in morally reasonable as well. And it is not morally, ethically, or pragmatically reasonable to think that an entire neighborhood would be made up of nothing but undocumented immigrants. And if you have reason to believe an individual citizen is in fact harboring undocumented immigrants or something like that, then you would not need to go door to door. You would simply execute a judicial search warrant on that house, and you would find those people and remove them from the premises, and probably arrest the people in the house for blocking an investigation, which I would also disagree with, but I would disagree with it on ethical reasons, not on just I don't even have to really get into the ethics of this, is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. This is not a situation that needs my commentary as a leftist on the ethical dimension. I guess it does on some level, but I feel like the thing to keep in mind the most is that it just flatly is not how things are supposed to be done from a legal standpoint. Now, obviously, it's a moral argument to care about the good, functioning of the rule of law and all that shit anyway. But on a basic level, if you like the idea that your country functions and works on some level, you should be opposed to what Trump and ICE is fucking doing to our country. You have no idea what you're talking about. Look up the Bill of Rights, idiot. Literally, there are hundreds of... It is a disgusting thing to think about, but there are hundreds of thousands of people in America who have never read the Constitution. They've never read the Constitution. They've never read the Bill of Rights. They have no idea what it says. They say Second Amendment, and they know that that's in the Constitution, but they probably don't realize that it's part of the Bill of Rights. They probably don't know what it's sandwiched between. By the way, I do. The First Amendment, which dictates that the government shall have no power to restrict the press. Freedom of press is guaranteed, freedom of assembly, right to address the government for redress of grievances, right to petition the government for redress of grievances, right? That's all codified in the First Amendment. Then the Second Amendment is right to bear arms, right to form militias, and the necessity of both of those processes to be well regulated. The Third Amendment is no quartering soldiers in the houses of your citizens. The Fourth Amendment is no unreasonable searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment is a right to not self-incriminate. basically. You have a right to not speak on as a witness in, like, do you know what I'm trying to say? I really have a hard time, like, saying what the Fifth Amendment does out loud, even though I think I actually do understand the basis of it. It's like, it's simple enough to say it's the right to not have to self-incriminate, but that just sounds like such a clumsy way of wording it. God damn it. These are pedos and people without brains who are gone. Arm yourselves and ignore the bots. Yeah, ignore the bots for sure. For sure, for sure. You support criminals? No, I'm not MAGA, so, not a big supporter of the felon in chief. Third Amendment, quartering military officers in a civilian home forcefully? No, not forcefully, in general. No, it's not. There's no provision in there like you can do it if they agree to it. No, you're not supposed to do it, period, according to the Third Amendment. This shit makes me so angry. It makes me angry too. And it makes me fucking sad and alarmed, really, more than anything, because I realize just how many people don't know their rights and don't care to. Flatly don't care to. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in this country who are completely willing to hand over every right that they have or that they've ever had if it means protecting them from what they see, what they've been led to see as their big enemy, whether they see that as trans people or immigrants or whatever. They're willing to literally live in a fascist state where the art that they're allowed to produce is dictated, the words they're allowed to speak in public are dictated, the words they're allowed to perform are dictated, if it means rescuing them from the things that they've been made to be afraid of. Rather than just confronting those fears, recognizing their absurdity, moving forward with those marginalized communities to build a world worth defending. Is your position that Americans should have free and open, non-enforced borders? I mean, yeah, on a long enough time scale, I don't think that borders should be a thing. I mean, I'm a big, border abolitionist, so yeah, on a big enough time scale. But for now, no, I think that you continue to enforce the idea of a border. But I just think an ICE officer's job should not be rounding people up and deporting them. I think it should be pointing people that would be border hoppers towards legal points of entry. And I think that legal points of entry should be made way easier to get through if you're a fucking, like, honestly, if you're from Mexico or Central America, frankly, I think you should be able to just come into the United States and work here the same way someone in France can go to Germany and work there. I think that we need a Schengen area for America. Like, I think we need, like, some kind of contiguous North American collective economic environment. NACE. Yeah, call it that. Literally, just call it that. The North American Cooperative Economic Environment. Yeah, there you go. NACE. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of NACE, which I just pulled right out of my ass. But no. We need these people, and I would like it if they were better paid. And they would like it if they were better paid. And the economies that they come from would like it if they were better paid. And our economy would function a lot better if they were better paid. But that's going to involve changing a bunch of regulations. Are you guys ready for that? I'm ready to deregulate things a little bit if it means freeing the wheels of immigration up so that we can get people, have their workers' rights protected, and benefit from the diversity that they bring to our country. Are you? You guys like to talk a big game about deregulation. Well, let's talk about some deregulation on the immigration situation. I got a potato chip in my hair. Yeah, sorry. It fell out of your dad's beard when I was fucking him last night. I was doing the power bottom thing. I was topping from the bottom, as they say. How many immigrants is too many? As many as 1 billion people would kill to move here? No, they would not. There are not that many people trying to get into America, and even if there were, we can hold them. Like, the truth of it is, America is a fucking empty place for the most part, and we do not use our land intelligently. We fucking just flatly do not. Almost nothing should be grown in the Central Valley of California. It is a desertified place that has only been made to support farming on the scale that it does through massive engineering. Like on a scale that is like dried the fuck out of the Central Valley and the rest of California. I understand they're out of drought now, okay? But that ain't gonna last because their water practices haven't changed. So, like, you know, pretty much everything that is grown in the fucking Central Valley should be being grown in the Southeast. And there are tons of things that are not being grown in the Midwest that probably would be if the demand was there and we had the like additional workforce and everything. So it's like, whatever, dude. Our country's carrying capacity is about, you know, that many people, I would say. No, I don't know. I don't know what America's carrying capacity is. I've never looked into it, but it would not surprise me if we couldn't like we could easily handle a doubling of our population. Like, there are vast, vast tracts of America that are empty, like functionally empty. Vast swaths. They didn't go through the system set in place. They don't get to stay point blank. Why not? Ronald Reagan practiced amnesty. Why can't you guys? The first president who made America great again practiced amnesty. Look up the boat people. So we were okay with it when it came to the boat people, but not for the millions of fucking, I don't know if it's millions, but it's probably a couple of million Hispanic and Central American, just generally, workers that have come to our country to work. Like, they can't be given that same amnesty. We can't even talk about a solution that includes a more humanitarian fucking solution. Today is very different than 45 years ago, but for what reason? Just saying it's different is, that doesn't, that's, I can't, there's nothing there. There's no meat for me there. The criminals killing innocent Americans, you know what? If they were just locking up the criminal fucking people, like if they were just going to America's prisons and jails and looking for the undocumented immigrants who had been locked up and sentenced and all that shit, whatever, dude. I don't even think most Americans would care. And frankly, if they weren't politicizing it and publishing every fucking picture that they take and every video that comes out, we wouldn't know about it, you know? Like, they aren't, though. They're literally going to Home Depot and rounding up big masses of people waiting around for work. They're going door to door and asking every fucking person there to show their fucking papers to make sure that they're an American citizen. And that's just a baseline violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. And those who would trade security, those who would trade freedom for security, will lose both and deserve neither. Your empathy is weakness? Oh, okay. Uh, let's see how you really feel about empathy. Charlie Kirk was a fucking bastard, and I don't give a fuck that he died. It's a little exercise in empathy. Charlie Kirk was a lying, hateful bastard. I'm glad he died. This is an exercise in morality. This is an exercise in empathy. Let's just see. Empathy is weakness is crazy. I agree. You're so strong. Thanks, Hot Wheels. Now tell me how you really feel. Empathy is weakness is a widespread belief. Yeah, so is the idea that the rapture is going to happen. You know, around a billion people worldwide are fucking Muslim. Being wrong is pretty common. I got one problem squatting. This is my one problem with what you've said. Can you give me your argument on this? Sure, yeah. So my defense of squatting is this. Private property is, in a sense, theft because you are preventing it's not theft in the sense that you are actively taking something from someone in a mugging, but it's financial theft on the same scale as embezzlement or anything like that. We just don't prosecute it like that because we've normalized and legalized it. But effectively, the idea that you can, from afar, own a patch of land and prevent anyone else from living there or making any use out of it is an idea that is not just fundamentally anti-human, but deprives other people from what is, in a lot of people's mind, their natural right to have a place to rest their head at night, a place to exist in, right? Until we get to the point where there's literally no more room for any of us, then I don't think anybody has a good excuse to say, no, you can't live there. And so, if you have that understanding in mind, that you are effectively preventing people from living in places by owning them while not living there yourself and having no intention to live there, then the only conclusion you can, come to out of that as far as squatting is concerned is that it is actually a righteous and based activity that restores to the proletariat their ability to control at least a tiny fragment of their fate. I mean, there's also pragmatic reasons for why you should have some kind of baseline squatting protections, right? So, pragmatically, you don't want people building houses that take up land and require resources but provide nothing in terms of economic output, right? A house with a family in it is itself kind of a provider of economic output. Not only are they paying on that mortgage, if there's a mortgage, or paying the rent, if there's rent, but they are themselves working or they're generating income and spending that money in some way, unless they're super duper ultra rich, right? But a house that is merely used as an investment vehicle is not an active player in the economy, but is a massive drain and a massive source of necessity without itself actually being like none of that productivity that's poured into it is conducive of further productivity. So just like pragmatically, you don't want rich people owning 15 houses that they don't live in. Like just pragmatically, you don't want investment firms owning 200 homes that they do not allow to be rented out and do not allow to be sold. You just don't want it. It's just not good. It forces housing prices. It doesn't force housing prices, but it encourages housing prices to stay high because there's no threat. Like if you've got no squatting protections in your country or in your state, there is essentially no threat to an investment firm or some real estate trader or whatever to them keeping their land on the market for 100 years if they want to. They can just turn that entire house into an investment vehicle. And I don't think that that's right morally. And I also think that it's incredibly stupid economically because you want people to be able to buy houses because ostensibly you want money to move through the economy. Not only that, but you really don't want to make poor people feel like they're completely unable to get by no matter what they do. That sort of thing tends to lead to revolutions. And that, I suppose, is my 5-part defense of squatters' rights. If you're talking about me, don't misgender me when you're talking about me. I won't read your comment and I won't take you seriously. And I don't give a fuck about what you think about my gender identity, frankly. So I don't need to hear your disgust about it. And I don't need to hear your misgendering bullshit, you know? So if you don't like it, go find another stream and go fuck off. I don't care that you think I don't make shit. I don't give a shit. You probably have a mortgage, weak bitch. Don't come at me, okay? Don't pocket watch me, bitch. Motherfuckers that pay a mortgage or worse, rent, coming at me, pocket watching. If you were personally that is the worst argument ever. If you were personally affected by the crime, would you feel differently? Yeah, I might. And in that instance, I would be compromised and an unreliable source of information on the topic. Some people fly into a murderous rage when they're stolen from. Do you think somebody should be able to be killed just for stealing a pack of gum? Watch how many people in the chat say yes, by the way. I've been saying it for a long time. America's chock full of Nazis compared to a lot of countries. America is literally full of disgusting, not full of, I'm not saying it's nothing but them, but America is a good third disgusting troglodyte chimps that would literally beat every single one of their coworkers heads in, beat them to a bloody nubbin if they could do it and not go to prison. We're talking about intrinsically violent people, disgustingly violent people with bloodshed in their hearts, bloodlust in their minds, and they just want to see the world burn. And it's a good 1/5 of America, at least. And it really colors our national discourse. Why do people waste time on these topics? I just a channel of people dancing and drumming. We need hobbies. I mean, I have hobbies. I just, nobody cares. Dude, the fact of it is, if people gave a shit about hobbies in, the media environment, there'd be a lot more content about it. I agree that we need hobbies. I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way. I'm just saying that when it comes to content creation, fucking garbage in, garbage out. What do you expect? Why do people waste time on these topics? You got me, but they do, so here I am. Germany might have us beat with the nationalism thing. You definitely don't know what America is full of. Just to see such pessimism is sad. I mean, I have been all over this country. I've been as far west as Pismo Beach, California, as far east as Salisbury Beach, Massachusetts, as far north as the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and as far south as fucking San Antonio, Texas. So I've been all over this goddamn country. And yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, easily 1/5 of Americans are troglodytes that are venomous and bloodthirsty. I'm sorry, but I don't know how else to excuse the shit that they say. Either they're bloodthirsty, venomous troglodytes, or they are people who live in such a fucked up, corrupt, and toxic culture that they have completely normalized that kind of language. When I asked that question, how many people here would agree that someone should be killed just for stealing a pack of gum? I remembered how many times I've had to listen to conservatives arguing that these Muslim countries might get a lot wrong, but man, they don't fuck around with prisoners, and I love that. Oh man, they'll just kill you for stealing. they'll cut your hand off for stealing. And they were basically all but jerking off to the idea of petty criminals being tortured to death, basically. All but jerking off at the idea. And when I thought about that, that's what led to me to say that, because I just realized, like, what am I asking? Of course, there's people out there that would want to see someone get shot to death in the street for stealing a pack of gum. What am I talking about? I'm talking about fucking America here. We love bloodshed. We love violence. We love violence. Oh, we feast on it. Violence is our drug. Violence is our favorite drug. And there's about a fifth of us that are just absolutely lunatics with it. And they think they're smart. Yeah, they think that they're the smartest people on the planet. We are desensitized to death. That's kind of the way I feel, hacktivist. I kind of feel like it's led to, like, the desensitization campaign that our media has been on for about 20 years now, 30 years now, has led to some people who are not just desensitized, but who actually fetishize the violence. They actually fetishize the fascism. We are significantly more peaceful than most nations on Earth. Maybe. Are we significantly peaceful? Are we peaceful compared to a lot of other, like, developed countries? Not really. Not fucking really. I mean, the UK is not exactly doing great right now either. I know there's pretty widespread protests in the UK, but I think, like, from what I can tell, the rest of Europe and Canada seems to be doing okay. It doesn't seem like they're going through a whole bunch of, like, national unrest right now. You know, Iran's going through a lot of unrest, but Iran goes through cycles of unrest. Iran is the great big nothing. Things happen over there, you know, a couple of thousand protesters die, and then everybody expects something to happen, and nothing ever happens because it's the fucking bog of eternal stench, and it's cursed by God Almighty or something. Being trans isn't a choice, like I said, dumbasses. Yeah, being trans isn't a choice, but it's not going to stop idiot bigots on the internet from, like, acting like it's just something I wake up and choose every day, you know? I didn't mean to misgender you, by the way. I don't know what's going on. I just got here. Okay, well, you're fine. You're chill. Um, I really don't mind people that do it accidentally. It just bothers me when people do it on purpose because they think they're going to get a rise out of me, you know? It doesn't really bother me, even. It just, like, annoys me. Consider moving there. Consider moving where? This is such a stupid argument, by the way, because America is a democracy. But this just goes to show you what I was talking about there being some really unenlightened morons out there in the average American population. Think about how many people have met you with the response when you talk about some political issue that you care about or something like that. You start making comparisons to other countries, especially. Think about how many times you've had to field the argument, well, why don't you just move off then? Well, love it or leave it. If you don't love America, then I think you ought to leave America. If you're doing anything other than supporting the Republican agenda. Funny that, for some reason, the right wing never gets love it or leave it. I think it's high time the left starts using that rhetoric, by the way. The left really needs to start pushing hard on that shit. Like, we need to start meeting fire with fire. Every single time a right-winger complains from here on out, we need to start saying love it or leave it until they drop it from their vocabulary. Until everybody gets so sick of hearing it that we all stop doing it, we gotta fucking hit their asses with that shit. Make America great again? What do you mean? America's not great right now? Get the fuck out of here, commie. What do you mean? Love it or leave it, Trump supporter. Yeah, she totally chooses to live as an enemy of the country. Chooses to wake up hated. Yeah, 100%, you know? For the vibes, man. For the vibes. Why would you move to a war-torn country if you support the revolution there? It doesn't mean I should go there to die for it. It just means I support that specific thing. No, friend, you have to understand. If you've got any criticisms at all of America, then you need to go move off to some other country. If you've got any single criticism of America and you're not right-wing, then you need to leave. That is basically the logic that you're being confronted with. Hey, Phoebe, now that the chat has slowed down a bit, can you go into my history and read the question I had? Sure. By the way, if someone wants to make sure their comment or question gets read or answered, consider sending a super chat. We do have some content goals coming up this Friday. If you guys end up making them, we are, let's see, last night I think we got up to 63, and now we're up to... Okay, so if we get $25 more before Friday night, we will be doing some old lolcow content concerning a couple of people that used to be Brett Keane orbiters. And if we get $125 more before Friday night, we will be doing a political compass test where you guys finally get to figure out exactly where I stand on all the issues. So if you want to see that content, consider donating towards it, either through Super Chat or with my Cash App, which is in my channel description. Now I'm going to look at Matt Blank's chat history and see what he's asking. I'd like to play devil's advocate for a moment. If people are here illegally, what would be the proper way to deport them? Not a fan of ICE, not a fan of them kidnapping people or abusing people. If people are here illegally, what would be the proper way to deport them? I don't think that deportation is the answer to people being here illegally. I think that amnesty is the answer, because I think that the reason why so many people here are here illegally is our doing. I think we have created a system that incentivizes illegal immigration over legal immigration, and we need to fix that system. And I think amnesty is one of the parts to that solution. So I would come at I would just come at it from a completely different perspective entirely. My solution would be amnesty for these people. Amnesty and a path to citizenship. You have a real job? If by real job you mean like a job with a boss, no. No, this is what I do for a living. So you believe any person should be able to go to any country at any time, no matter what? I mean, you know, principally, yeah. We can hash out the details, but yeah, principally I do. Now, I understand you might need like some kind of like border gate there. I understand that it might make sense to, like, for now, especially, you know, as long as we're retaining this capitalist system and for as long as that's around, it might make sense to make people pass freight through specific ports of entry and make people pass through at specific ports of entry. But like, we could completely fucking change our approach so that's way more feasible, and so that it's way easier to just come into this country and start working, which is what people really want to do. Like, that is the driving force behind illegal or legal immigration into America. They want to fucking work here. iShow Speed has 73,000 viewers. I don't need to hear it, okay? Good for him. Gets more viewers on one stream than I've had in my channel's entire lifetime history. Oh. So, like, what America does? No. America has a real hard time processing people through. America does not want you to come over here unless you're willing to fucking pony up hundreds of dollars. America just flatly doesn't want you coming. Not only that, but Trump has repeatedly indicated that he wants to cut off visitor visa and tourist visa processing for all kinds of countries. Not only that, but you have to prove your social media history to get into the country at this point. So no, America doesn't really do that. We've got an arcane system meant to exclude more people than it allows in, which is itself meant to just reinforce white supremacy, in my opinion. But whatever, call me a crazy lefty for that one. You can come here, but you have to come here through the border and do it legally and pay hundreds of dollars to the fucking immigration authorities for the right visa programs and have the ability to do that in addition to paying for your fare and a hotel near the border if you don't get let in instantly. And you've got to be able to, like, do you see the problem here? Do you see why some people just like spend the same money that they would have spent on one part of that process to a coyote to get them fucking smuggled across the border and then just make the best that they can afterwards? We need to streamline the fuck out of this system. We need to streamline the fuck out of this system. And frankly, we need to stop requiring any kind of visa or pre-approval or whatever to come into America if you're from Canada, Mexico, or Central America. Like, what is the fucking threat? What are you fucking worried about? Don't hit me with the drugs thing, because I'm not a believer in the war on drugs or the war on drugs. I know for a fact, because John Ehrlichman said so, that the war on drugs was created by the Nixon administration to oppress black people and hippies. So I don't care about the war on drugs. I think it should go away. So don't hit me with the drugs. I don't care. I'm not 12, nor am I 65, so the argument doesn't work on me. So just let everyone come here, no questions asked? No, I think you should be asking some questions, but I don't think it makes sense to have one little old border bridge with 4 little old border offices in it that can process people once, every fucking 5 minutes. No. Make these fucking huge fucking streamlined systems and, once again, reform the visa process so that you don't need to get a tourist or a visitor or any kind of visa to come in and live and work in America if you're from fucking Canada, Mexico, or Central America. I think, once again, that we need to have a system very much like Europe has with the Schengen area for America, and that ultimately, for people outside of that specific contiguous area, that we should be more focused on, like, and here's the thing, there's some kind of, like, for freight, for example, you want to be able to have a little more control over that, not just for, like, the fucking war on drugs reasons, because I don't believe in those, but for agricultural reasons. There are agricultural pests that exist in southern Mexico that we don't want getting into the United States, right? And there are agricultural pests in the United States that they don't want getting into Mexico. So it makes sense that you would continue to have some kind of enforcement on that level, for example. Ultimately, what needs to be reformed the most is the idea that you need to apply for and be approved for a permit to come into the United States and live and work here. I think it should be a very simple process. You're asked at a port of entry a fucking questionnaire. And if there's something about you that's a health risk and they can quarantine you, like give you some vaccinations and quarantine you or whatever, or they can say, well, we can't let you in unless you agree to these vaccinations, then that's one thing. But I will not suffer any race or nationality-based qualifiers for immigration into this country because I think diversity helps us. I really like Schengen. It's just a few small offices where they check basics and nothing else. It's most an identity check, a card check, and a cargo check. It takes maybe 15 minutes. There you go. And that's how I think it should be in America. Very simple stuff. Like, I think the driving through the border should basically be like driving through an immigration checkpoint down on I-10 or something like that. If you've ever driven down on the border of America, you've driven through ICE checkpoints before, or Border Patrol checkpoints before. And it's very simple. All they do is ask for your ID. They don't even ask for your insurance. They just ask for your ID. They ask a few basic questions, even if the fucking answers to them are just plainly obvious. And 99% of the time, they just send you on your way. It's still a little bit of a fucking reach into your business that I don't really think we need, but It would be way better if the system was that fucking simple when you were trying to get across the border. But it's not. Do you have the right visa? Is it in date? Is it still accurate? Has it been approved? Have you paid the right amount of money? All this shit. It's biological the same way that autism is biological. It's not perfectly defined by psychology like many other aspects of human nature that are widely observable yet impossible to test in a lab. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But whatever. You frankly will never get some people to acknowledge the validity of trans people because they're not looking to be correct. They're looking to push an agenda. Ultimately, they're looking to push a narrative, and it doesn't matter how many facts you hit them with. It doesn't matter if you hit them with the Mayo Clinic's write-up on transgender people. It doesn't matter if you hit them with Johns Hopkins write-up on transgender people. It doesn't matter if you hit them with the American Psychiatrists Association. It doesn't matter if you hit them up with the American Medical Association. They don't care. It's not about that for them. It's not about some genuinely held moral position. It's about vibes, I guess. It's about a narrative. If you're a French citizen and you're living in Germany for work, you need a residence. It's like their second question they ask you. They ask you where you're staying. Right, but that can be a hotel. It doesn't need to be like you can be a French citizen and work in Germany and like you just need to have your accommodation taken care of. It's not, the restrictions are not the same. And even then, that would still be simpler than what we have right now. Most don't even know what the DSM-5 is. Exactly. Exactly. Vibes, yeah. Like, they've got a feeling that there's something icky about trans people, and they're going to push that narrative, that vibe, no matter what, right? It is exhausting, though. I won't give up talking because transphobes might be afraid of something deep down that's repressed. It is 100% exhausting. I totally get that. But it is worth it, you know? Like, it is something that does help. It does legitimately help when people that aren't trans help us make the argument for why trans people are valid. Because ultimately, you can hit them with all, and maybe this is the point I was reaching towards. You can hit people with all kinds of medical textbooks. It doesn't matter if they don't give a damn. You cannot convince with reason one who was not reasoned into their position. That's a Jonathan Swift quote, I believe, and it definitely applies when it comes to transphobes. They didn't come to their position from logic and rationality, because logic and rationality would tell you that transgender people are real and valid. So you can't reason them out of the position. So all you can really do is talk to them about the base, like the things that motivate transphobia. You can try to approach it from different angles and see if you can't get under their skin a little bit and figure out exactly why they feel that way. But if you just approach it from like a facts-based standpoint, you're going to lose every time, not because you don't have the superior facts. We do. But because they don't give a fuck about the facts, because they didn't get there from a facts-based standpoint. Nikola Tesla was crazy. Yeah, he was. I mean, like, Nikola Tesla actually was crazy. He was a really good inventor, don't get me wrong. Really talented inventor, really smart guy. Also insane. Like, batshit insane. Dude, didn't Nikola Tesla fucking believe in the occult and shit? I'm trying to understand how it's biological. So, we don't know exactly what gene causes people to be trans. Like, we don't know for sure that there is a gene that causes people to be trans. But it seems pretty likely because of the consistency in the experience for trans people. There are also trans people who are trans because of intersex disorders that were not properly treated like properly when they were born, or that there was really no proper treatment for, that there perhaps is not a proper treatment for now. Um, because I'm not a doctor, right? Because I'm just a trans person who is myself a patient, I am probably not the best person to explain to you the biological basis behind transgender people. But if you want to read more about it, I would advise you to look up Mayo Clinic Transgender, and that will give you the first page of a very long write-up that the Mayo Clinic has done about trans people, and it explains all kinds of different facets of our existence in language that is pretty understandable, honestly, even if you're just a regular person. I'm saying it because if someone from Guatemala sneaks across the border with no place to stay and no job, no prospects, it's very different than a Frenchman working in Schengen, Germany. Okay, but my thing is that that's like not really the case, in my opinion, right? I don't know if you realize this, but there are literally entire industries in America that rely on shady, duplicitous, under the table work, right? Fruit packing plants are bad about this. Meat packing plants are perhaps the worst as far as like industrialized industries that still have heavy percentages of undocumented workers. Agriculture in general is the big offender. American agriculture relies on the undocumented immigrant for a profound amount of the labor that is needed for it. And they do not engage typically. Some of them do. So like there are some that actually take advantage of documented workers because it's still a tax advantage to bring over documented temp workers for some big farms and shit like that during the growing season. It can be a way that they can double dip, right? They get this really cheap workforce that they don't have to pay what they would have to pay basically anybody else in that same situation to get them to do that same kind of work. And, they get a tax write off because they're helping people that need jobs in order to have their visa requirements fulfilled. But for the most part, the industry is reliant in America on undocumented migrant worker, and migrant workers in general are just looking to hire people, like you said, that random Nicaraguan guy that comes up from, or what country did you say? What country did you say? If someone wants from Guatemala, yeah, that Guatemalan dude is going to be hired within a month of getting into the country for some warehousing job or some agriculture job or something like that. Going to be hired within a month, and it's going to be actively working in our country. We'll have a residence before that. We'll be staying with family or something like that. And that's the thing. Even if you're a Frenchman working in Germany, in the Schengen area, your residence where you're staying can be a family member's house. It's not like you yourself need to own the residence before you can go over there. And if we did that, once again, I'm saying that even that system would still be an improvement over what we have currently. If it was as easy to get in America and live and work as going through the border and saying, yeah, I'm planning on working agricultural jobs in Southwest Texas, and I'm going to be staying with my uncle, you know? If you were able to say that at a border crossing and be like, all right, sounds good, here's your paperwork, on about your day, I bet things would flow a lot more smoothly, and we wouldn't need these pesky visas that make things so fucking complicated. That's good. At least they have a place. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you look at America's homeless population, America does not import homeless people. America does not import, like, contrary to the rhetoric of the administration, most people that are coming into America are doing so to live a better life, not to be one of our bedraggled scum. Like, who the fuck would move to America to be an American homeless person? What a horrible country to move to be homeless in. Like, if you're just going to be an illegal, like, think about it. I wish people would consider, like, the pragmatic reality of the rhetoric that they're saying. Think about it. Would it make any goddamn sense to come to America unless you wanted to work and make a better life for yourself? Because honestly, the only people who are kind of making it in America, even a little bit, that aren't just filthy rich, are the people who are working their asses off, you know? Like, I'm a pretty lazy fuck, and I ain't making it, you know? But people in my position, like content creators that just like their whole life rotates around being a content machine, they're millionaires, making crazy money. There are lots of fucking people in America that are making it okay. They're still feeling the squeeze, don't get me wrong, but there's lots of people that are making it okay just from working hard and being dedicated to their job. That's a reason to move to America. If you want a slice of that American fucking pie that you can get by working hard, which you can't really get as much anymore. Like, it's not really as available to you unless you're willing. But that's the thing, right? That's another thing is like immigrants will come over here, especially South American or Central American and Mexican immigrants will come to America willing to live in a way that a lot of people, a lot of our people just aren't. And I think it's kind of an economic problem for us. Like, you know, you might have 12 Hispanic immigrants sharing one little 3-bedroom house here in America. And it works out because, yeah, but like, you know, each of them is only making like $5 an hour at the job they're working under the table. But all of them combined, that $5 an hour means that, you know, with 12 people living there, even if the rent's $1,200 a month for the house, it's only $100 from each of them. Over the course of a month, that might be less than a quarter of their check. So they're willing to engage in a type of like economic. Well, that was creepy. Of course, they want a better life. They want us to pay for it. Well, how do they want us to pay for it if they want to sit here and work? I don't get that. How are they asking us to pay for it if they legally cannot get any of the tax benefits? Like an undocumented person can't apply for welfare unless they fucking steal someone's ID, in which case they're an identity thief. And you aren't seriously going to sit in here and make the argument to me that every undocumented person is an identity thief. That just is not rational at all. Or Americans can learn more than one language. Yeah, why is the impetus always on the immigrant to learn our language and not on Americans to be able to understand a word or two of Spanish? Yo hablo poquito español. Mi gusto. Es bueno. They eat the dogs, though. Don't know. Yeah. I don't think they're eating dogs, man. I really don't think it's happening out there. They offer learning programs for English or afternoon school, depends on the area for commonality, but that's, in my opinion, the government's job to provide adequate education. Many immigrants also already know basic English since it's needed for work or just living. Yeah, 100%. Immigration is not the big, bad, scary that it's made out to be by mainstream right wing news media in America. If you listen to the media in America, you would think that immigrants are literally the fucking scariest thing ever. A good amount of foreigners know English. Tons of people from other countries know English. I guarantee you there's a foreign person in the fucking chat right now that speaks perfect English, and we just don't, like, we don't even know that they're foreign because their English is so good. Someone who has felt male their whole life and then transitions suddenly is biological or a choice. What? I'm not sure, like, what the example you're citing would be. Like, I don't think anybody that doesn't feel trans is gonna transition. It just doesn't make any sense. There is no country where being trans sets you up for more opportunity than not being trans. Literally every country in the world treats you worse if you're trans than if you aren't. So there's no incentive to come out unless you are genuinely trans. In the US, you should be trying to learn English as that's the single most useful skill for getting a job. I get the argument, I'm just saying. Like, surely there's some impetus on Americans to fucking be prepared for the onslaught, right? Of different languages that are going to come from different parts of the world throughout their life. I guess not. No, I don't know. It's like talking to a brick wall, honestly. Not you in particular. I just mean, like, with some arguments, there is just no moving people over. You might not be one of those people, but a lot of people just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that they need to learn Mandarin. They don't want to hear that they need to learn Spanish, and they ain't gonna do it. Good argument, bad argument, no argument. Doesn't matter. Personally know someone who felt male their whole life until they decided they felt feminine for a few months and then transitioned. I can't speak to some specific individual, like, example of yours. I'm sorry. I don't know. The medical science on this says that transgender people are people who experience gender dysphoria for a significant portion of their lives and for whom it does not go away and for whom it is treated by living as the gender opposite that which they were assigned at birth. I know what the medical science says about it. I will be honest, I don't know what your particular anecdote really has to say about the broader subject. Like, is there probably somebody out there who's tried to do it cynically? Sure. Consider it this, though. What are you basing all that on? Like, let's just take it seriously for a second. What are you basing all that on? Self-reporting? So they came out for a few months. Probably nobody in their life accepted them as trans. And then they detransitioned and then started telling you this about their experience. Is that right? Because you're probably just being told a lie, frankly. They probably are very much still trans and were probably trans their whole life and felt that way from a very young age, realized that they were not going to have a social life if they continued to be trans and decided to detransition rather than, like, completely void their social life. And now they're just telling everybody what they want to hear in regards to it. Because, like, people that don't accept trans people really only want to hear one thing, and that is whatever their particular narrative is about why trans people don't exist. You know, so someone comes out as trans and then they detransition from lack of social acceptance, and then they start telling the people around them, oh, I was only trans because, what is it that right-wing grifter you were listening to said about it? Said trans people are just like following a trend or whatever. Yeah, I was just, yeah, that. They might as well be saying that to you, but they're not, you know? Like, people are just too stupid to see a lie for what it is, so they assume that it's truth. I flatly do not believe most detransitioners. I think that they are opportunistic people who realized that they had a real opportunity on their hands, and I think that you really have to hate yourself to a profound degree. Not just to come out and then to put yourself back in the closet. but to then make a living on trying to extract those rights from other people. Detransition is usually because of peer pressure and social problems because of their initial transition. Exactly. It's a lack of acceptance. It's society not being very friendly to trans people, which causes most people to detransition, which is another reason why it's impossible to believe someone who detransitions on their trans takes after that. Unless they remain loudly pro trans, you cannot believe it as, like, okay, that's real. And some people would want me to be like, oh, well, that's sad. That's, you know, but I think it's pathetic. I think it's fucking pathetic. I've had to sacrifice profoundly to be able to call myself trans. You know, it's kind of comes with the territory. And I don't know that I have a lot of respect for somebody that. Now, if you're like a kid and you can't help it, you have to live where you have to live, whatever. But, like, if you're an adult that chooses to detransition because you have an easier time living with the creature comforts that the people around you provide than you do living as your authentic self. I don't know. I see that as weakness. Maybe I'm wrong for that. Maybe I'm being a douche, but I kind of see that as a weakness, as kind of a little bit pathetic. It's like stand on conviction, you know? There are all kinds of people I don't feel any need to speculate on why they transition or detransition. I could just ask if it's that important to me personally. Yeah, I mean, it's not really important to me personally. But, you know, people were talking about it in chat, and I think it's a worthy conversation topic, I guess. I personally don't care if someone detransitions, but with the amount of social pressure that exists around people who come out as trans, it becomes very hard to take a trans person's activism seriously after they detransition, especially if it turns hardcore anti-trans and conservative and shit. And in a lot of cases, it does. And that just makes you wonder, is this an authentic position shift? Or is this a person realizing, holy shit, I'm surrounded by people who are going to disown me if I continue to live as my authentic self. But I also happen to be surrounded by people who are gullible idiots and will pay for my life, more or less, if I just detransition. And I kind of just think that's a little bit of a wormy thing to do. But once again, if it came to an individual person in my life, I don't think I would speculate on them like this. I don't think I would feel entirely comfortable doing it. So maybe I'm kind of a douche for doing it to people in general. I don't know, just something to think about, I guess. Phoebe, some people can hold the line harder and longer than others. Sure. But it's one thing to decide I can't handle the heat. I'm going to detransition so I don't have to worry about this. And, you know, that's the end of it. And it's another thing to detransition and to decide to make the fact that you're detrans full personality so that you can make it into a right wing media grift, which is a tendency I see a ton of. Dude, if I were to detransition, I could make millions of dollars over the next year. Literally. If I were to detrans on some big stream and everything, like, even though I'm cynically telling you guys right now, like, regardless of that cynicism, I could still do it and probably make millions of dollars over the course of the next 2 years, even though I'm not even a popular, like, I don't have any popularity. I don't have any fucking sway or any fucking push or pull, but I guarantee you that video would go mega viral. And I guarantee you there would be people wanting to have me on their show and all kinds of shit. Suddenly I would be fucking, oh man. And when my audience turned on me, my established audience for being trans, I could scalp millions of dollars on a GoFundMe from the right wing. These people are gullible idiots and they'll do anything for someone that they perceive to be on their side for a moment. They've got no principles. They've certainly got no long term thinking. And so they don't see cynicism for what it is. But once again, I'm like making a difference between someone who chooses to be like a super out and proud D-trans creator in an era where, and I don't think it's like, it's not a problem to be like a D-trans creator in general. It's fine. Like, you can detransition, you're allowed to express yourself however you want to. But I think where it becomes kind of unethical and shitty is when a person is detrans and advocating for trans people to not be allowed to exist, because, or to be incredibly restricted in their rights and medical care and stuff like that. And that start, like, at that point it screams grift. It just screams, I have decided to sell out my fellow trans people for money and fame, and that is shitty. I'm sure there are detransitioners who legitimately feel misled by medical professionals, but some medical professionals suck or don't have enough experience. Yeah, I mean, there are people who get knee surgeries who regret it. In fact, it's the most regretted surgery. What are we going to do? Start arresting knee doctors, you know? Oh, dear God in heaven, it's cold. Okay. Put this blanket on as well. It's gonna be warm. There's rampant malpractice in medical industry in general, Phoebe. You were right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how rampant it is, but I know that there are definitely rates of regret when it comes to certain surgeries that people look at as way more necessary, that would lead you to believe that the medical industry is still getting shit figured out. And that shouldn't be surprising to anyone when you consider the fact that modern medicine is only about 200 years old. It's not uncommon. Doctors get sued a lot. Yeah. Why? They definitely do. So that makes sense. That's why they have to have malpractice insurance. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. Wait, didn't you work for Amazon shipping or something? No. No. Never worked for Amazon shipping. God, I'm cold. Some packing and shipping thing? I mean, I've definitely worked in jobs where I had to move stuff and, like, use a pallet jack and stuff. Like, I've done jobs that are adjacent to packing and shipping, but no, I've never worked in a, like, the closest thing I've ever worked into a warehouse was a couple of factory jobs I've had that were in, you know, I don't know, they were warehousey factories, or very factory-esque warehouses. I don't know how to put it. I'm gonna head to bed. Have a good night, Phoebe. Well, have a good night, Scarlett. We took an arrow to the knee. Rip. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna be getting off here soon too, because it's we just hit the 2-hour mark and it's 12:30 at night. So pretty late for me. So anybody else wants to support the stream or help us get towards our goals? Once again, we are $25 away from covering some old Brett Keane orbiters and $125 away from covering a political compass test. And this will be done on Friday night if we make those goals before Friday night. I think we will, but we'll see. Support the stream, donate, yes, 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 please. Please, if you have the funds, consider doing so. This is the last call. Closing time. One last call for super chats if you want to get my attention. Yes. Look at that. I'm going to pin your comment. Smart gentleman. Thinking about the forward thinking. Phoebe, will you ever do a mukbang stream? Yeah, I think I will at some point, yeah. I have eaten on stream before. If you sign up for my membership, my members-only stream, the last one I did last week, actually, contains footage of me eating a pizza. I'm so excited when I do, too. Phoebe can afford rice, maybe. All the rice you can eat. Yeah, dude, I'll do a rice mukbang. I'll do a rice mukbang. I hope some kind soul decides to donate through Cash App, because I'm gonna need some more devil's herb tomorrow. I like rice and all. I don't know if I can eat a whole sack of it. I need something tasty on top. I tell you what, there are lots of ways to dress up rice and make it a dish that is surprisingly edible, although simple, like butter and sugar. Honestly, you like make some rice and then you like put like half a stick of butter in that bitch. After it's just got done cooking, it's nice and hot still. You let it stand, right, until it's ready to be fluffed. Then you put some butter in there, right? You let that melt down, and you put some sugar in there, and then you mix it all together. I like just plain white rice with salt. That sounds so unappealing to me. That sounds so unappealing. I really like rice to have some color and some like saltiness, and I just love fried rice. I think is really what it comes down to. And there it is, the most important thing, more important than food, sticky, icky, feel-good plants. Dude, I agree with that. I kind of feel like you're making fun of me, but you know what? It's valid, because I do consider the sticky, icky, feel-good plants to be more important than food nowadays. And that's good for me, because I'm a fat bitch and I need to lose some weight. So the fact that I have reprioritized things is, for me at least, a good thing. I am a little LOL, but with love. Yeah. Well, that tracks. That tracks. I'm fine with it. I like the fact that I've got some people in my fan base that'll make fun of me every so often, you know? Keeps me honest. But yeah, like for me, I consider it a positive improvement because I used to consider food so deeply important. Now, well, now if I don't have fast food for 2 months, it's like, "Oh, well, whatever." But I really would not want to face the prospect of not having weed for 2 months. I could do it if I had to. I've done it before, multiple times, but not exactly my idea of enjoyment. My dad is the same way. If he's not working, he's zoned out on the couch ripping bongs all day. Well, that is one difference. Like, I'm not that kind of smoker. Like, I use it more chronically when I'm streaming than at any other time of the day. Normally, my smoking schedule is like this. So I'll wake up, well, whatever time I wake up, way earlier in the morning if I've got my son, way later in the day if I don't. But I'll wake up, use the bathroom, usually do stuff for like 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that before I smoke. And then I'll have me one bowl. And once I finish that or get it mostly finished, I'll go do stuff for 4 or 5 hours. And then usually smoke another one. And then at night when I do these streams, I'll usually make my way through another one. So I would say between like 3 and 4 bowls a day. So it's not like I'm spending all day on it. But then again, I'm self-employed and a stay-at-home mom, so I probably do end up smoking more than I think I do. But principally, I feel like I usually just have like those 3 basic smoke periods a day. He's more weed than man. That's funny. Can you believe my pot smoking dad is MAGA? I can't. Age rots the brain. Age does rot the brain. I'm telling you what, though, there's lots of MAGAs that smoke weed. That's one of the reasons why Trump is not. That's one of the reasons why Trump is different than every other Republican has been about the matter of weed. Trump is a teetotaler, but Trump kind of knows that his followers are pot happy people. It's funny though, everybody loves weed, and that's just proof of it, dude. Weed is the only thing that has cut through the bullshit, pretty much, and the murder of Renee Good. Weed and the murder of Renee Good are pretty much the only two things that have managed to cut through the bullshit when it comes to like wide bipartisan recognition. Everybody loves weed, and everybody knows Renee Nicole Good was murdered. Poorly educated. Yeah, I mean, it could be poor education, but it also could just be like a combination of age rotting the brain and I don't know, man. Maybe it is poor education, but I tell you what, the education system used to be more functional in this country. Around the time Matt Blank's dad would have been going to fucking school, it would have been in the 70s, I would assume. I would assume Matt's dad probably went to school in the 70s or the 80s. He's probably a Gen Xer, maybe even a boomer. And if he's a boomer or Gen Xer, he got a pretty good education. Maybe not the best, but a pretty decent little starter education. I agree, it used to be good. May she rest in peace. What really sucks and the real culprits will not see justice, and that person is Trump. You can punish the tool, but I would want the head of the dragon. May she rest in peace. May who rest in peace? Who are you saying rest in peace to? Oh, duh. My bad. I'm an idiot. Yeah, Nicole. Or Renee. Renee Nicole Good. I'm trying to remember her whole name. Anyway, yeah, definitely rest in peace to her for sure. I would say there isn't much wrong with our education system. I learned most of the fundamental knowledge I have from school. I didn't know how to do algebra before school taught me. Well, yeah, but like, well, let me ask you this, Post. Did you learn how to keep a budget and like how to invest and what like the difference between a 401k versus a Roth IRA or something like that, or a non-Roth IRA or whatever? Like how much like because I agree, American public education pretty good at providing that sort of baseline math skill. But what I wonder is, are we actually all that effective at providing universally useful information? Because algebra is useful for everybody, but it's most useful for, people that want to do math for a living, basically. Whereas budgeting, yeah, I mean, you have to know that. You have to know that. You need to know that. There were fun book fairs. There were courses available related to finance in my high school. They were elective, though. Pod rots the brain, too? Yeah, kind of. I mean, not really, dude. Well, yeah. Oh, God, this one's hard. Okay, listen. I think pod affects different people differently, right? And that sounds like kind of a cop-out, but here, I'll defend it. I think weed affects most people enough to leave an impression and enough to hinder them a little bit, but they can get through it. Are there people, though, that have 100% cooked their brain with their constant and endless overconsumption? Sure. But I've also met people who you would think that was true of that just couldn't stop smoking. Dude, two of the most functional fucking people I've ever met were giant potheads. Like, smoke all day, dabs in the car fucking potheads. I don't know, man. One of them was a construction worker and the other was an arborist, like a tree person. One of those dudes that climbs up in the trees and cuts them down in residential neighborhoods and shit. A tree trimmer guy. And he would like smoke blunts on the job, as far as I know. Like you would fucking spend all day smoking weed effectively. But he worked, the whole time. I don't know. There are just some people that it does not seem to have that like effect on, and then there are definitely some people for whom it does. I wonder though the mechanics behind it. I think about it all the time. Like for me, I am definitely like more productive when I have weed than I would be if I didn't, usually. But I've also lost productivity from weed when I've gotten too stoned or when I've been particularly depressed. I don't know, complicated drug. Phoebe, I see a lot of people escalating the calls for almost like a civil war. Leftists have to know this would not be good for either side. I feel like it would only make Trump call in the army. What do you think? Is this just steam blowing off, or is there a real threat? Some people use pot to think, and some people use pot to avoid thinking. Sometimes it depends. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Some people use pot to feel productive, and some people use pot to, um, I don't know, to enjoy their non-productivity, I guess. But yeah, so do I think that that's a call? Do I think that that's going to hurt and make Trump call in the army? Is that just steam blowing as a real threat? Paul was saying that there's going to be a civil war at some point, early 2027 or late 2027, early 2028, maybe. And I don't know that. I don't know that he's wrong. I don't think that civil war is the right way. But you asked me if I think it's a real threat. Yes, I do. I unfortunately do. For the first time in my 27 years of life, I actually do think that there are genuinely a ton of people in America who want to come to blows with their neighbor over the political thing. And that will escalate into a civil war if it is not dealt with in some other way. If we don't figure out our differences and work together as people, fucking somehow. If we don't figure shit out, it will eventually escalate into that position. I mean, people have been threatening the whole Civil War thing. Oh, there's going to be another Civil War, second Civil War, forever and ever and ever and ever. This is the first time I've actually felt like the conditions seemed right for it. And the conditions I'm seeing are widespread dissent among the populace, a core group of people in support of government forces opposing a group mostly within the populace, corruption, massive corruption across the entire administration. And most importantly, perhaps, we're starting to see sheriffs and local PDs pull away from working with the feds. And some of them have actively stopped working with the feds and are now actually tailing the feds. So that is the biggest sign that we're facing a potential escalation point. The fact that you now have municipalities possibly challenging the federal government with some kind of like interdivisional warfare, I don't know. That's the scariest sign of all, because that means the factions are starting to be established. A lot of people, by the way, keep saying, oh, America can't have a second civil war. Where would the fucking lines be drawn? The lines wouldn't be geographical this time. If there's a second American Civil War, it's going to be the people versus the government. It's going to be the people versus the authoritarian fascist Trump regime. At least that's what it seems to be shaping out like. Or it's going to be the fascist authoritarian fucking neoliberal regime that comes after the Trump regime. But I really don't think that kind of energy could be sustained against the Democrat. Like, I'm not saying that, whatever, I'm not endorsing the DNC. I'm just saying, their politicians inspire hatred, sure, but not nearly the kind of hatred that Trump inspires in people. And, for good reason. The DNC is not exactly out there trying to literally crush every freedom you have out from under you. Overstimulation can rot your brain, or understimulation. I agree. I don't think there will be a civil war. I think some people would perhaps like that, and it's a take that sells, but I don't think that will happen. I don't think it will happen. I'm just saying that the conditions are ripe for it, and that it wouldn't surprise me if things develop along that track. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm waffling here. I'm not trying to waffle. I'm just saying that I've heard people fucking talk about the Civil War happening again my whole life. Or at least the last 10, 15 years, that I've been paying attention. And never before in my life has I ever felt like there was any real meat behind it. I'm just saying this is the first time I've ever felt like there was like some kind of justification for it. Every other time it's been like, oh, fucking, oh, cry me a river. MAGA's mad because Biden set up pro-trans thing. They're threatening civil war. Fucking, news at 11. Every other time. This time is the first time where I've been like, like, giant clashes between federal law enforcement and state law enforcement is like how a modern civil war starts, It's like very often whenever you have a modern civil war in the countries that have had them, it's like some a lot of times it's like internal divisions within the different governmental structures that govern a country in the modern day. A lot of times in the modern day, it's not like you've got this like geography within your country that wants to be separate or wants to like split off or something like that. It's more like you've got people within the different frameworks of power that would take one side or another, and the sides would not be delineated by geography. But I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying that it's possible now in a way that it's never been before. The ingredients are there in a way that they've never been before. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean they'll get mixed up. And even if they do get a little mixed up, it doesn't mean that they'll get thrown into the oven. I think it's more of an active incentive you're observing as opposed to a legitimate concern. What do you mean? Are you saying I'm only saying it's likely or not likely? Because I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying it's possible. Because it's like there's an incentive concern. Because if so, you know, one would think I would have been saying it with at the top of the stream when I had like 300 people in here, rather than now when it's just me and you sitting here theory crafting. It's one thing holding our government accountable. It's another thing killing your neighbor. I don't know how the U.S. would handle that. It would sow more hatred than we have now. Could we ever come back together? I don't know. Some people would say we never really effectively came back together after the first Civil War. I mean, going to the South is a different experience than going to another part of the country. I guess that doesn't matter that much. It's not that big a deal. Whatever. It sounds more important than it really is. I get that, but I definitely notice a cultural difference between the South that, like, I feel like the East Coast, Midwest, and the West Coast have way more in common with each other than either of them, with the possible exception of the Midwest, do with the South. But point is, I don't think the lines would be geographical this time. I think the lines would be ideological. And maybe a geographical divide would emerge from that. But I think that it would be like ideological, basically. I think that whatever the two opposing forces were that ended up being in conflict, you would have people that are on the left and interested in being active in that way, joining like the forces of the people. And I think you would see people on that more far right authoritarian kind of side that want to be fucking fascists and shooting people and doing all that garbage, joining the one for the government. And a lot of people, like in wartime normally, would probably just be living at their houses and trying to get about life as best they could. But I do want to fucking reiterate though, I've heard this shit a million times, Like when Matt asks me, like, do I think it's gonna happen? Maybe, This is the first time in my life where I've been able to say maybe. As in, some people just rely on the urgency implied by the idea of civil war, and that is something just in the public consciousness and people talk about all the time. It's a selling headline. Um, for sure. I think I get what you're saying. You're not necessarily saying that I'm doing it for cynical reasons. You're just saying that it's being trumped up for cynical reasons, and that's why I'm being made to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Like I said, I've said about a dozen times tonight, it's a thing that has been said a dozen times, and you are wholly right. It is a selling headline. People love to hear that we're going to be in civil war in a couple of years. But, every other time I've heard people say it, I think it was a little easier to roll my eyes at it. That's all I'm saying. The last time somebody said that we were going to have civil war in the streets, we didn't have ICE murdering a lady in broad daylight in Minnesota, you know? And we didn't have local law enforcement, more importantly, saying that they were going to be actively targeting ICE agents for arrest when they commit crimes. No, I'm saying that the idea of a civil war is like the idea of immigrants eating cats. Well, I guess I just disagree. I don't know. I don't think it's as unlikely as you're selling it. I'm willing to be wrong, but that is my authentic opinion. I don't think it's likely, but I don't think it's as unlikely as it's been every other time that someone has cited the idea. I'm not trying to give the idea like all my credence and say, it's going to happen in this date and the other. You know, I repeated Paul Zigo's projection about it, but I don't necessarily know that he's right. I'm just saying I'm hearing other fucking people give takes that lead me to believe that there are a lot of people who think it's going to happen. And I'm seeing a pattern possibly emerge that would lead me to believe that it's possible. It would still take quite a few catalyzing events for it to actually pop off. And even if something did pop off, I think it would take quite a bit of organization for that to turn into something that could actually be quantified as civil war. You know, we still got a keyhole to go through, but there are more elements to the key this time in play than in previous rounds, in my opinion. I think there's going to be increasing tension in the U.S., but I don't think domestic warfare is likely at all. Maybe some isolated skirmishes. So you don't think that... Okay, so what do you think would happen? Let me just ask you this. So let's just say that the Minnesota Highway Patrol and the Minneapolis Police Department both decide, or maybe they're told and ordered, and they decide to follow the orders, to oppose ICE with violent force if necessary, and keep them out of Minneapolis at first, out of the Twin Cities, and then out of Minnesota in general. What do you think would happen? I hope that didn't sound condescending. It occurs to me that it might have. But, like, seriously, like, what would you say that they would do? Like, do you think they just, like, send in the National Guard and push back? Is that one of those local skirmishes that you're talking about? Might be something like that? Because I'm of the opinion that, yeah, it would be a local skirmish, but I don't think it would end there. I think that the state would call up reinforcements, at which point the federal government would call up reinforcements, at which point, you know, there'd be another battle, and either it would be quelled and quashed and that'd be it, or there'd be some other state that joins in the fight, and eventually we'd have like 3 or 4 states fighting the federal government. Then you'd have secessionist movements. It would be a whole mess. That's how I see it, but maybe you've got a different idea as to how that would go down. The federal government is not going to escalate to civil war unless the federal government wants to be dismantled. And I would 100% agree with you and think that is 100% true if we were under a normal neoliberal administration. But I don't know. I don't know that there are enough people with better angels to them left in the government for that to be true anymore. Like, I know for a fact Trump doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's an egotist first and foremost, a narcissist first and foremost, and I don't think has much of an idea of what's going on actually in the country, and would just, you know, like, he wouldn't give a shit. He would just issue the edict and have it done, and it would escalate. Marco Rubio, is he competent enough to know that that's a bad idea? To know that you're right? Is Marco Rubio competent enough to know that you're right? I hope. I hope. Sure hope so. It would be the worst move the feds could make, and they know that. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with you in the idea that it would be a horrible move for them and a bad accident and a big mistake. But I do disagree with the idea that they wouldn't do it because of that. Like, the federal government has done all kinds of dumb shit out of hubris before, you know? And speaking of Renee Good, they're saying that the ICE dude suffered internal bleeding in the torso from the car. Thinks it's just spin. 100% just spin. I wouldn't believe a goddamn thing the Department of Homeland Security ever has to say again. They're a Nazi institution at this point. Corrupt circles in the government will obviously eliminate threats they can manage and control the narrative around, which would not include civil warfare. The cat is out of the bag at that point. I hope you're right. I will say you're older than me. You've had more experience with this, and you seem like you're probably better read than I am. So maybe you're right. I hope you're right, in fact. Post, I really do. I really do. I'm not even kidding. I legitimately hope you're correct. Because I don't know. I don't know anymore. I just flatly don't. I woke up to a bruise on my belly this morning. Oh God, I'm suddenly internally bleeding from that incident days ago. I know, right? Crazy how that works. He was so badly traumatized that his only reaction after shooting a woman is fucking bitch. Yeah, traumatized people, so well known for walking calmly off the scene, cursing at the person who inconvenienced them, going on about their day, unbothered. It's a real hallmark of trauma, you know? How do you know someone was really fucked up? They walk away completely unbothered. Anyway, the feds control with information when it comes to this domestic shit, trust me. Control with information when it comes to domestic shit. They control with information. So, are you basically saying that if Trump did decide to launch some kind of civil war against American people and the federal and state law, and the state law enforcement and shit, that they would just start like strategically releasing Epstein files or something like that? Because you might be right. I mean, there definitely. Oh shit. There definitely are people with compromise on Trump. Would that compromise come out if he tried to do a civil war? I don't know. I hope so. Once again, hopity hope hope hope, but I would hope it would come out. They will blackmail before they shoot a state rep. Okay, I get what you're saying. And I guess I can agree with that in principle. Yeah, I mean, I hope. I just don't know anymore, dude. You said at that point the cat's out of the bag. I feel like the cat's out of the bag now, Post. I feel like the cat is out of the bag now. We have DHS posting Nazi memes. Fucking propaganda is full of Nazi references and imagery. Even the Department of Labor is like posting Nazi memes and shit at this point. Like white nationalist shit. I don't know, man. I feel like the cat's out of the bag already. I feel like they overplayed their hand. Wouldn't Civil War also be bad for business? It would be horrible for business. Yeah, Civil War would be awful for business. Number one, private business interests are what are going to be targeted in any kind of infrastructure-based raid. If you want to destroy an arms factory, well, you're not talking about the Royal Armory in the United States. You're talking about bombing a Caterpillar plant, or bombing a Northrop plant, or a Grumman plant, or a Boeing plant. You know, you're talking about literally destroying American business, like places of American business. So yeah, like that is honestly the best way to put it. Honestly, you and Post talking about what you guys have kind of does give another angle on it. That should be a comfort to anybody listening. If you're wondering if Civil War is imminent, probably not, because Post and Matt together have kind of made a good point, which is that the business interests of this country and the feds, kind of by extension or by relationship or whatever, they don't really want a civil war. There are definitely elements within our federal government that would be okay with it, Trump being the most notable. But I don't think that most of the people with their hands on actual levers of power want that. Walmart doesn't want a civil war. Walmart does not want to have to foot the bill for $1 billion worth of stores that have to be rebuilt, or $1 billion or $2 billion or $10 billion worth of warehousing and product marketing and shit that has to be redone. No, 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 no. They ain't trying to lose that kind of money. And the feds that they pay to run things the way they want are not trying to lose their fucking juicy, fat, fucking lobbyist paychecks either. Which is perhaps the greatest reason why you shouldn't fear a civil war, because the business interests and high power political interests in this country that really run things at the back end have nothing to gain from that. Well, it depends on what you think their long game is, actually, I guess. If you assume that the long game of the corporates, or the corpos, is to just have us continue working and buying forever in perpetuity, then yeah, civil war makes no sense. It's just stupid. But if you think that their plan is to transition us into some kind of technocracy, then they might be looking for just that very opportunity. Like, if you're looking to destabilize the United States and take it over with an even more fascist government than what it has right now, you probably want a civil war to happen. The people weaken the federal government weakens the people, and then you swoop in with all your technology, take it all over, institute a new order, and hey presto, you've got yourself a country. There are global relations that rely on the stability of the United States, period. They will not compromise. They will do absolutely everything else. Yeah, the more you think about it, or the more I think about it, and the more you talk about it, and the more Matt brings up, the more I think you guys do have a point. I'm not gonna like go back on what I said necessarily, but I understand that it's less likely than I thought. I'm just saying, with how off the wall fucking insane the last 10 years have been, we cannot write it off. We can't write it off. Well, as long as Trump and his friends are making money, the economy is great. Well, that is the active incentive I referred to, but there's second banana, small potato. Fair enough, fair enough. I think one could argue the Civil War has already begun. We just aren't calling it a war. Only one side is fighting right now, though. I mean, that's kind of the point I'm making, but I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a complicated topic, and there is no right answer. Um, because none of us ultimately know what's going to happen in the future for sure. We're all just spitting conjecture here, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Post is probably the most right out of any of us, because you really can't argue much with business interests, you know? Like, you cannot argue with the money argument. It's just, in America, it is the driving force behind most things. And that's an inescapable fact. Well, removing Trump is only the start. The people Trump placed in power will not let it go so easily. Well, that's what I wonder, dude. When it comes to the whole Civil War idea, the whole idea that it could happen is predicated on the idea that there are going to be state and local law enforcement that start to stand up to ICE and start to try and actively keep them from entering their state, and that will escalate into some kind of armed conflict and armed standoff between Minnesota and ICE or California and ICE or somebody in ICE, and that will blossom into something bigger. But I think that would only happen at Trump's behest. I don't think that there are actually that many people in Trump's cabinet or near him that are interested in that idea, because it doesn't really benefit them for all the reasons that Post has laid out. Stability is more important in the United States than it is in a lot of other places because, um, the dollar is the currency of the global currency. Um, Tons of business flows through America. Products on their way to final manufacturing, products being final manufactured here in the U.S., products getting their start as raw materials that we export. The global economy depends on America's good functioning, or at least it being a stable place, even if it's not functioning well. I just have to wonder though, because that stability is ending in general. That stability is coming to an end, and what will the bourgeoisie do in its death throes? Do we know? You think fringe second banana U.S. politicians with foreign interests and a destabilized want foreign interests and a destabilized U.S. Do what? Nazis have hijacked the federal government, the executive particular, and boldly, yeah. The answer is no, they don't. They want global customers, global labor potential, and secure relationships. Question on, I think I get what you're saying now. Yeah, they like the economy and the ability of the billionaires to continue making money hand over fist, and the ability of the people in the very top positions of power to continue being in those top positions of power. It's very much predicated on the U.S.'s continuing to exist and be a stable economy, relatively stable. Question on Gavin Newsom doing everything he can to stop the higher tax for the 0.1%. Do you think he has a point that to stay competitive, we cannot give them higher taxes? No. No, billionaires listen to billionaires, and billionaires shills listen to billionaires too. Gavin Newsom is a billionaire shill. He comes from a state of billionaires that has simultaneously managed to codify itself as a place with lots of social safety nets and everything like that, and a place where um, you can go to get cheap taxes and shit, but it's neither. California, well, I mean, it's got social safety net shit. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's just like not exactly the tax haven Gavin Newsom wants to make it out to be already. And the idea that a slight tax increase to their overall burden would convince them to leave is just silly. Do you think they would leave California? They're just saying that. Well, let me ask you this. Where else are they going to live where they've got all the labor that they need, all the laws that they like, and all the food that they love? A ton of wealthy people that leave California for some odd time end up coming back to the state because it's not really fucking feasible for them to move their operations anywhere else. I'm glad my grandpa fought in World War II didn't live to see this door to door shit popping popping sits in the streets for being in the way. I know, right? Basically, the U.S. relies on global relationships via the U.S. as it exists right now from a market standpoint. Other global powers also need to capitalize on destabilized labor forces. Look at history. Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing, are we? Are we? Like, the only point I'm making, the only point I'm making is that there is more insanity in the federal government than there has been in my lifetime, okay? And that makes the assemblage of these other ingredients that can sometimes point towards an emerging civil conflict seem a little bit more likely than it otherwise would be to me personally. That doesn't mean that I think it's actually going to happen. It doesn't raise it to 50%. I'm saying it went from sounding like 0.5% likely to like 10% likely to me. And the more I talk, it's sounding more like 5% likely or 1% likely. But it's still like the ingredients are there in a way that they haven't been before. And I want to acknowledge the way people feel about that. Even if I'm going to go on to tell them the billionaires don't want civil war. The politicians don't really want civil war. Not the ones who are not Trump, right? And his closest cronies. Your state politicians don't want war. Most of the federal politicians don't want war. Certainly most of the Congress and most of the Senate doesn't. And international interests also do not want us to go to war, whether those be corporate interests or national interests. Nobody wants us to go to war with ourselves. Destabilizing the U.S. would be inviting foreign interference? Well, yeah, 100%. I'm actively ignoring your comments. No, I'm not. I'm not seeing them. Do you think things are going to get worse before it gets better? Yeah, I do. I hope not much worse, but yeah, I do think it'll get worse before it gets better. I don't really get Trump. I would think he would try to make as much money for his family as possible, and everything he does just makes him and his family look worse. I can only think he thinks, and he just thinks, and he just sucks at it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have no idea what Trump's inner mindset is, but I think it is mainly defined by a very domineering narcissism that is pretty much the only thing that makes me seriously consider this Civil War rhetoric. It's just the fact that, yeah, the ingredients are there, and we've got that crazy motherfucker in office that makes me think, could things pop off? We'll say it's 1% possible. Oh, you're fine, Post. He already made $3 billion. How already could I want more? I want the world. I want the whole world. I want to wrap it all up in my pocket. It's my bar of chocolate. Elon is getting $1 trillion bonus and wants more. Yeah. I mean, there is no limit for billionaires. There is no dollar amount you can give them which will lead to their happiness. They are immune to that. It's on Rick, no worries. Alrighty, well, I'm going to go ahead and go, you guys. Thank you for donating. Thank you for hanging out with me, as always. I'm getting tired, though, and I'm very cold. So I'm going to see you guys later. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I will talk to you guys some other time. Peace. Bye.